Wait, Benjamin, did you see the debate? I thought the debate went pretty well, personally. All the money we give to Ukraine, we don't give to Israel was pretty good. I thought it was funny. You gotta have a sense of humor. I'll go over it at some point. It was like 7 a.m. debate for me too. The comments were horrible. Yeah, of course they were. Obviously, yeah. It's gonna be the case anytime I'm outside my own like super specific circle. But I'll go over it at some point. Your rhetoric seems to not be able to cut through stupidity that they... Well, when I have a debate like that, I don't expect to like cut through it. I just expect to like introduce new perspectives. It's breaking points, okay? That audience, that community, super against sending money to Ukraine. So I don't expect to go over there and like epically own the whole the model of epically owning someone in a debate is one which is supported now exclusively by like maybe Ben Shapiro, and only because he talks to like college students to farm clips off of. This is like a Steven Crowder change my mind talking to morons off the street kind of thing, you know? In reality, it never works that way. Nobody changes their mind on anything. The only thing you can really do is try to reach the audience. There's actually a pretty large amount of the audience of Breaking Points that's still lefty. Isn't it cool how weirdo, campist, isolationist, like ranging from Nazbol to Nazi shit is really common online and basically like gains ground every single moment? But in real life, they're an incredibly tiny portion of the electorate. What do you think about the questions asked so far? They seemed fair. You mean to me? Like in that debate? I thought they were fine, but I don't remember all the specific debate questions, so... What's a campist? A person whose politics orient entirely around the defense of political interests other than America's. Basically, like the kind of person who will weirdly become an Assad stan, not because they like Syria or the Assadist regime, but because it's like the American regime opposes it. Or they'll defend Putin because it's like, you know, multipolarity. The American regime doesn't like it, you know? It's pretty common on the left. Ryan Grimm seemed to be pretty confused by your takes towards the end. The thing that confuses me is how anyone could believe that an imposed peace deal on Russia-Ukraine right now wouldn't be broken within 3 months. Are you kidding me? There would be a massive demilitarized zone across the entirety of the front line. You're telling me that like with the Minsk Accords, that both of which fell apart like immediately, you're telling me that like you like imposing an end to this conflict where Russia obviously wants more and Ukraine obviously wants more, that they're gonna like accept these new lines and not just immediately go back to war? Ridiculous. I can't believe that Morin said the US could bargain leaving NATO for permanent peace. Yeah, it's and then I'm like, couldn't Russia just invade enemy anyway? And he was like, well, I guess they could. It's like, all right, yeah, okay. This is like internet politics, man. Oh, I'm fully in favor of continuing to support Ukraine. Okay, Comrade Robin Hood, 100%. Well, that's not true, wet-ass Ben, because the first round of expansion that they would care about would be like anything beyond East Germany. And if that's the case, like you're no longer talking about anything that can be... It's like a non-falsifiable point, because there were countries that were added into NATO long before Putin could have even had a chance to invade neighboring countries, you know? Plus it was like 25 years ago. It's just not going to convince them. The idea that everything is NATO's fault actually is a heuristic that they fall back on time and time again, no matter what counter evidence is provided. It doesn't matter how obviously militant, expansionist, fascist Putin is. It doesn't matter how aggressive he is or how much his rhetoric makes it clear that he just wants more land. They will always go back to like, well, actually, this is our fault for allowing allied countries to willingly enter into a defense pact with us because it's in their interest to, no matter what. Can you imagine if like Mexico had a mutual defense pact with China and then America invaded Mexico, and all these campists being like, well, of course America was going to invade Mexico. You can't just have a joint military alliance with a foreign power on the other side of the world and expect that to go well. No, of course not. They would condemn America for invading Mexico and be in support of China providing weapons over to Poland joined after the Chechen War. But that was before Putin, right? The first Chechen war was, is my memory wrong? Wasn't the first Chechen war before Putin, and then Putin stepped up with the second Chechen war, right? Yes? Okay. Yeah. But an example of Russian expansion. I think it's a valid argument, wet-ass Ben. I just don't think it would have registered with them personally. I've dealt with those types before, you know? Chat, what is a heuristic? Am I misusing it? Isn't a heuristic like a framework for how to solve a problem that you fall back to? Like a heuristic is a system to resolve a rule of thumb, basically. Okay, yeah. If Russia joins NATO in the future, what would be the point of NATO? We'd still have a cool flag. What do you think about this idiot Rathbone? Wait, hold on, that's me. Isn't this the guy that got ratioed on every post that he made because his videos were idiotic? Isn't this that guy? Is he responding to me talking with Eddie Liger Smith here? This is the guy who I trashed in a debate, and at the end he just started shouting into the microphone over and over. Oh, by the way, this is the guy with the really creepy... Hold on, let me see if I can find his video where he tells you not to work. This is the guy who apparently, like, groomed a 15-year-old or something. He has, like, the crazy cultist stare, and then it turns out that he's a music teacher who has a band with a 15-year-old girl who he, like, glowingly described as having a... something like that. Where's the do not work video? How far back is that one? Wait, how long ago did he post this? June 25th. How often does this mother post? Look at his face. Second one down on the left? No, that's him responding to it. Hold on. This is TikToker energy. This is the guy who at the end of your debate transparently said he was only there for clout. That was Eddie Liger Smith, yeah. Well, again, one of the reasons why I don't do debates anymore. Because, like, every time I do, the people afterwards just admit, like, yeah, it didn't matter what point I was making or how well or how poorly it went. I was literally just here for the attention. Now I get to make my entire life about this for 6 months. I didn't know this guy posted that often. Anyway, he's crazy. Here's the video. Oh, is this it? Oh, yeah, here we go.
Work. Stop it. All of you, right now. Stop going. Quit your job. Just do it. Just do it. Just go ahead and do it. Don't be exploited for your entire life. Stop simping for your capitalist overlords who do not love you or protect you or like you. They will melt you down into biomatter and use you as jet fuel for the next flight to space. If it came down to it, stop loving capitalism. You have no capital. You're not a capitalist. You're a worker. You work for a living. What are you doing?
Anyway, my impression is that this guy is trying to do, like, the cult leader thing a little bit. He already seems to have a, I guess, kind of interest in young girls. All cults are formed for that reason and that reason alone. He has this weird, like, creepy... What was the black guy who did the video in the forest? And he was like, everything happens for a reason. He has, like, the really intense stare, you know? That guy's also crazy. I just think, reminds me of Charles Manson. Yeah, I see it. Anyway, so what's the video where I'm here? I don't think that Putin is a rational actor.
Let's do a thought experiment.
Okay, I don't think Putin is a rational actor. Okay, gotcha.
Let's imagine that Russia entered into a hostile military alliance with, let's say, Panama.
Wait, didn't I literally just do this example? Didn't I just do this? Also, what is a hostile military alliance? What does that mean?
Alliance with, let's say, Panama. And for decades, it began enlisting other countries in Latin America to join its alliance, working its way all the way up.
Oh my God, dude, I'm literally like, I've precogged this one, Minority Report. I've detected the crime of a bad argument. I've responded to it before you even did it. Is he going to say the U.S. would be right to invade? I've seen people like him try to make this argument before in that line where they're like, well, if all of this happened, wouldn't you support the invasion? To which my answer is like, no, I'd be on the side of Mexico. Are you kidding me? But the difference that he's going to make here is he's going to change the nature of the comparison by suggesting that through Mexico, they would like attack America or like aggress upon America. Whereas the fact is that NATO has not aggressed upon Russia, but Russia constantly threatens to nuke NATO countries. Like, NATO is far more passive than Russia, rhetorically speaking, when it comes to their, direct engagements back and forth.
To Mexico. And in spite of the United States calling for diplomatic negotiations with Russia for years...
There's another false comparison. NATO and Russia and NATO's constituent countries have been able to negotiate for years. That they can do that, you know? That happens.
In spite of the United States publicly stating its security concerns and that its territorial sovereignty was threatened.
When the f have we ever cared about America citing its security concerns are threatened? When is that? That's a defense of like the Cold War containment doctrine, isn't it? Like we need to go into Korea and Vietnam because communism is spread. Like what is that? Do we care about those? Are those like a moral argument? Are we doing like neocon logic from the left?
By the encroachment of this military alliance in spite of the U.S. stating that Mexico was a red line and would not be tolerated.
Since when do we care what America says is a red line? Is that how we make our moral arguments? Didn't America literally say this about Korea? Didn't we literally say, we've said we've given red lines all up and down the Cold War. A lot of them led to the death of many, many civilians. Is that like a moral argument? He's just projecting what Russia does? Yeah, because in order to defend Russia by comparing Russia to the US, you have to implicitly defend a lot of the bad stuff America has done, which I'm not willing to, you know? So I'm not willing to like go down that road.
If it were to join a hostile military alliance with Russia.
What is a hostile I don't know what that means. What does that mean? It's a military alliance that we're not part of? What does that mean? I don't know what that means.
In spite of all of this, Russia categorically rejects every call for negotiation.
But what negotiating what? Negotiating what? This is also what I mean when they try these comparisons. They try to like stack the deck to make it seem like what NATO or what America has done is really bad, but they never offer any like explanation for what they mean. What the comparison he's trying to draw here is that NATO has not let Russia prevent Ukraine from wanting to join NATO in the future. Basically, Russia wants the authority to prevent its neighbors from joining NATO because they want to have control over their neighboring countries, which kind of defeats the point of a military alliance if you can let your principal enemy like dictate that the countries they want to gobble up aren't protected by that alliance. Doesn't make much sense, you know? But in terms of open negotiations, Russia can communicate with NATO countries whenever it wants to. What kind of people even watch this guy? Not many do. He's mostly a lolcow. Like all his posts seem to get ratioed pretty hard.
And instead increases its influence in the region over the decade.
I'm okay with that. Russia or China or whatever, increase your presence in Mexico. Go forth.
It begins training 100,000 Mexican troops, which essentially bakes the Mexican military into the Russian military chain of command.
What? Okay, so this is, then why are we platforming this guy? Shut the this isn't platforming. What are you talking about? Hush, God, you're annoying. Oh, right. So this is saying something that sounds scary but doesn't actually mean anything. If Mexico and Russia were already in a military alliance that and had their own equivalent of like Article 5, what the would it mean to bake Mexico's military into the Russian military chain of command? This is something that's designed to like sound really scary, but it doesn't make any sense if you understand how NATO works.
Russian military chain of command. It starts conducting military intelligence operations within the region.
They already do that. What? That already happens. What do you mean? You mean like spies, or what military intelligence are you talking about? That already happens. A lot of military intel is done via satellites these days. What do they mean?
Russia gives billions of dollars in military aid to Mexico every year.
Okay, makes sense. They're in an alliance.
And in 2014, the KGB actually coups the government, which was sympathetic to.
Okay, so here's another like fake parallel. The only coup that happened in 2014 was Russia annexing Crimea and then paying separatists in the Donbass to occupy part of Ukraine. It's a common talking point that like America couped Yanukovych, the corrupt Russia-backed wannabe dictator that put forward anti-protest laws that would have effectively made him an autocrat. So again, like he's trying so hard to make the equivalency, but even with all of this put together, I still wouldn't support America invading Mexico, like not even a little bit. Would you? Would any of you guys? If all of this happened as he described it, would you be in favor of America invading Mexico? Because I certainly wouldn't. Maybe I'd be a little bit concerned about what was going on down there. Maybe like intensifying diplomatic negotiations. I certainly wouldn't want us to invade. Maybe if I was bored. Okay, maybe if I was bored. I get that. I understand.
To the United States and installs a pro-Russian government so it can continue what it's doing.
Just, again, ironic because the exact opposite happened with Ukraine, where Russia attempted to impose a pro-Russian government, and then when they didn't get their way, they annexed Crimea and invaded Ukraine.
Russia even goes so far as to install first-strike nuclear weapons along the U.S. border.
Have we done that in Ukraine? Where is this comparison going now? Do we have did we put first strike nuclear weapons in Ukraine? They lost their nukes. Russia is the country that keeps threatening to nuke the world. Ukraine is denuclearized.
Capable of obliterating Washington within minutes and also immobilizing the U.S. capabilities to retaliate.
But this is what nuclear submarines are for. What is that? Putting first strike nuclear weapons up against the border of the nation that you're fighting isn't like current military doctrine. Both countries could nuke the entire world. There's no way around that. Like, we're still fully in mutually assured destruction territory. We're not trying to put nukes in Ukraine to nuke Russia faster. We literally denuclearized Ukraine in the 90s in exchange for unconditional support for this exact situation with Russia. Yeah. Like, again, the reason they gave up their nukes was in exchange for Ukrainian territorial sovereignty.
In spite of more calls for diplomatic negotiation, the Kremlin releases a policy statement as late as September 1st, 2022, in which it calls Mexico an enhanced opportunities partner.
Okay.
And states that it will continue its military relationship with Mexico, despite the United States once again calling for a diplomatic settlement and negotiations with Russia in December of that same year. So in this current geopolitical situation,
This is like, he's still lining up, but like in all of this, I would still not want America to invade Mexico. Should we have let Ukraine keep its nukes? I guess so.
That I just outlined, if Biden decided to invade Mexico, would this person here be calling Biden an irrational actor?
This person is me, so I get to say it. Yes, 100%. Are you insane? Invading a neighboring country, like making actual attempted land acquisitions because they're part of a military alliance with a foreign power that we don't get along with? Yeah, absolutely. That would be deeply irrational. It would not serve our broader political or economic interests at all. It would not only be morally wrong, it would be bad for regional stability. It would hurt our ability to negotiate with Mexico in the future or like negotiate with Russia. It would be bad on basically like every level. It would be an irrational decision. All right, well, I'm glad I could clear that up. Here's the report of him quitting his job as a teacher to form a band with a 13-year-old. I don't even necessarily know if he's grooming her, even though it is admittedly like super, super weird. It just gives me more the vibes of like him wanting to do the cult thing where he tries to, where he's like really kind of creepy and forceful and he tries to like rope other people into it, you know? In this article, doesn't he literally refer to her as like mature for her age? That's such a red flag. It's from 2016. Sophia's 13. I thought she was like 16. 13? Wow. I thought I remember seeing screenshots from a different article. I don't remember this verbiage. Well, whatever. It's not really relevant to the article. I'm kind of doing like a little bit of an ad hom right now, but also he's weird and creepy. So, yeah. Next time you debate these, ask them what the Center for Ethno-Political Rehabilitation that Russia is sending Ukrainian children to has to do with NATO. They literally like deny that this exists. They genuinely deny that it exists. The massive funneling of Ukrainian children over to Russia to ethnically sort of like Russify them. The same thing that we did to like Native Americans 150 years ago. Like I've seen them, they just don't think they exist. They do the whole like Uyghur Muslim genocide thing of pretending that it's not even a thing that's happening. Nazi levels of anti-intellectualism. Well, ideologically, people like the guy that we just looked at aren't really different from Nazis. I mean, that's the reason why what's his name? Jackson Hinkle so effortlessly, shiftlessly moved between it's like just overt Nazi propaganda and like Soviet campist anti-America such and such propaganda. That's one of the reasons, that's the whole point of like the MAGA communism thing, that you can like simultaneously do Christian nationalism and also the weird like Soviet campism stuff. It's the same ideology. It's just like different subjects of support, you know? The argument isn't whether or not you support invading Mexico, but the analogy is that our government will. 2 points. One, the specific question was whether I would call it a rational decision. I think that if Biden invaded Mexico under the circumstances described by the guy with the weird eyeballs, it would be irrational, and therefore that our government would be ill-advised to do so. Not only is it morally wrong, I think it is bad for America to do that, if that makes sense. Also, the comparisons that he made were totally irrational. A better example would be, please keep in mind that Ukraine not only was Soviet territory until very recently, but the Russian government has been making moves on trying to conquer them for a while. So a better comparison would be, imagine if America previously owned and controlled all of Mexico, only recently lost it. We still clearly want it back, and our more nationalist agents are like interested in invading, and it's been clear they have for a while. We put in charge our version of Yanukovych, like a pro-America leader who isn't really supported by the people. He gets ousted because he doesn't do what is in the interest of the Mexican people. And in response, we invade and conquer Baja California and like have Mexican separatists up in the northern part of the country who are basically just funded and supported by us, try to take over their portion of the country. And after all of that, Mexico is like attempting to sign a military alliance with China. Would you blame Mexico? Right. They have to skew the facts because Russia is so obviously monstrously evil in this circumstance. And like there's no leftist justification. So they have to like skew everything to make it seem as though actually this is just like geopolitical rationality, but it's not. Imagine believing that Russia invaded Ukraine out of perceived self-defense, and in response to the encroaching NATO threat, Russia was like, yeah, we're going to exhaust all of our manpower, all of our economy, all of our munitions, all of our equipment to the point where we're running out of tanks and are using tanks in the 50s, fighting against a previously impoverished nation on our border that isn't even in NATO. I know the best strategy for fighting against NATO, the very real threat to Russia that's definitely going to invade. What if we exhausted ourselves before even touching NATO, you know? Like, Jesus Christ, Russia faltered miles from their own border. They faltered up against Ukraine. How do you think they do against Poland, a NATO country? Are you kidding me? Absolutely not. If it was an effort at self-defense, not a good one. If anything, I would say Russia's behavior is an indication that they were never threatened by NATO to begin with. Because if they were, why haven't we taken advantage of their massive weakness yet? Right? Like, if they were so threatened by NATO, why do they feel comfortable exhausting their entire military in a years-long quagmire with a non-NATO country right next to them, while the entire NATO forces, completely untouched by the way, are just watching from a distance? If we were actually a threat to them, would we not have intervened at this point directly and invaded? I mean, if they can't handle Ukraine, they can't handle us. And if it's nukes that are preventing us from invading, then how are we a threat to begin with? They had nukes before. They had nukes before they invaded Ukraine. If nukes prevent us from taking advantage of them when they're weak, then how is this an act of self-defense? The nukes were there before. They're weaker now than they were before, significantly so.